what's interesting is that, and I hate to say things that sound hierarchical, but I will for a moment here, which is that there seems to be a continuum of unitary states. And we've all experienced a lot of them. It starts with kind of, where we are in our everyday life. Well, we feel, a little bit connected to our society, to our friends. Then, and I'm cutting out a lot of the points along the line, but, you can have a romantic relationship. And so you feel a little bit more intimately connected with another individual. You can feel connected to your community, to a spiritual community. And then, if you go, sort of, so to speak, far enough along that continuum, you can have a feeling of oneness of all things, or a oneness with God, or oneness with, some universal consciousness or something like that. So part of what we think is going on is that, as the parietal lobe loses its activity, it's something called deafferentation, where you begin to, prevent activity from getting into the parietal lobe. It starts to, blur that boundary between the self and other, and then you can feel that sense of connectedness. And it's interesting because, and I tried to make this point a little while ago, which is that, I could just be me doing a meditation practice and feel connected to the universe. So, it's nice if you're in a group of people to feel, that sense of social connection. But that, a small group of people can still feel connected to all of humanity or all of the universe. So there's a bit of a movement along this continuum, which is a very important part of this whole process, and probably has a lot to do with the activity levels that are going on in the parietal lobe. And one other answer to your question, which may be also kind of where you're going to, is that there's a little bit of evidence to suggest that on the left side, because we have a left and a right side of our brain, that the left parietal lobe may be a little bit more about the self and the self-other relationship, whereas the right side may be a little bit more about objects in the world. So presumably, if you have a decrease of activity in the left parietal lobe, you kind of lose that sense of self, and your self becomes, you have that feeling of connectedness. But if you lose the right side, that you also have a sense that, all the objects in the world kind of evaporate, so to speak, and then everything becomes a oneness. So there are different, parts along this unitary continuum that become part of the experiences that people have. So, a practice like orgasmic meditation might be something where, you feel incredibly connected with the individual. If the practice, if you do the practice many times, you may feel connected to humanity. Again, you can still have those same levels of spiritual connection with something greater than just the two individuals who are involved in the practice. But that's part of what's going on. But then again, that parietal lobe activity and what you feel connected to is, that's where some of the other parts of our brain become part of that process, because you might feel connected to God, you might feel connected to, a group of people. It really depends on what your overall perspective is. And the greater the larger the group that you feel connected to, presumably the greater sense of love and compassion you have for, if you have a sense of connection to all of humanity, then you feel that sense of compassion for all of humanity. Whereas if you keep yourself limited to a small group, that's where things can sometimes go wrong. And I actually talk about this in the book as well, which is that sometimes when you get a sense of connection only within a small group, then the outside world can, you can start to get into an us versus them mentality. And that's where, we talk about rituals as being, wonderful and feeling a sense of connection. But what Jean DeQuilly and I used to talk about too, we had one of our favorite statements that we would make is that rituals are a morally neutral technology. And so they can be used for great good, but they can also, unfortunately, be used for great evil. And, we've certainly seen that in, throughout history. And the Nazis were terrific at using ritual, but obviously for very, very bad purposes. So rituals can kind of cut both ways. And that's the same thing with sexuality, the same thing with religion. I mean, sexuality is a wonderful thing. And it's it really embodies, for religious people, it embodies the connection that we have with God and in our connection with another. But obviously sexuality can be used for very terrible things and abuse and so forth. And religion can be wonderful and help connect people and find, charity and altruism and compassion. but unfortunately, people can also kill people in the name of God as well. And so, again, I try to talk about all of those and where all of those different pieces and elements can come from as we look at this interplay between sexuality and spirituality.